Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midnight Club. I mean, KeenGamer podcast. I'm your host, Mark O'Callahan, and we have a spooky episode for you. Fun spooky, not sad spooky or terrifying spooky.
It's a little sad spooky.
Oh, actually, we'll actually talk about a lot of sad spooky. But someone who does not make me sad, Jessica Orr. Jessica, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Just thought I'd bring up that I do have brothers, Mark, and I was babysitting. And I like how I like how you were like, you're a liar. And then as soon as the Last Jedi hate started coming on, you're like, Jessica, see it.
Oh yeah, and you're like, oh, I'm an only child. Ooh.
I unfortunately have 3 brothers, so no offense. Actually, all offense to my 3 brothers. Yeah.
Yeah.
How dare you make me babysit?
It's all my fault.
Yeah, let's just go with that. Yeah.
I don't know.
Hi, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How was babysitting?
A lot of Minecraft, Roblox. Did get to play a little bit of Fall Guys, which is always my please can we play Fall Guys? But yeah.
That's the thing, like, I don't want to say like when I was a kid, but you know me, I'm a single player guy. What is this other people I have to deal with?
Yeah.
My multiplayer back in the day, we used to plug in other controllers in the GameCube and play Mario Party.
Just marking his old grounded talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's all 5G.
What a world.
I know.
I say as I play like 6 live service games. It sucks.
Genshin
Impact, Fortnite,
Fall Guys,
Pokemon Go.
That is live service, but I feel like, what is Pokemon Go?
It's just its own genre, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's an open world game.
It is. It is definitely an open world game.
But enough about Pokemon Go and open world games. We are here to talk about The Midnight Club, the latest Netflix release from Mike Flanagan. And we got a lot of games that we've been playing. But first, Jessica, you've been playing Scorn. And I've been seeing a lot of hype recently on my timeline. A lot of Game of the Year talk.
Oh, really?
I don't know if this is like just random people just saying Game of the Year. And by the way, if any game is your Game of the Year, even though it's not a popular opinion, that is 100% fine.
Yeah, it's your Game of the Year.
I don't mean the passive aggressive. Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's good. But Jessica, how is your experience playing Scorn?
Yeah, so it's interesting you're saying that because I haven't really been looking at the timeline on Twitter or anything for how people have taken Scorn. I got it a few days before release, and it is pretty short, so I was able to get it finished before it released. And it is a very polarizing game depending on what you want from it, because if you don't like puzzles, you're probably not going to like it. If you don't like gross horror, you're probably not going to like it. If you don't like story tools for the environment, you're probably not going to like it. So there is no dialogue in this game at all. It's about, I completed it in 6 hours, but I got stuck on 2 puzzles for, not even joking, about 2 hours. So, probably more like a 4-hour game. It is beautiful. Like, extremely amazing graphics. Like, I see why they didn't want to put this on the old Xbox One console generation. It's just PC and Xbox Series X at the moment, and it is stunning, even if it is absolutely disgusting. And yeah, for anyone who doesn't know the basic premise of Scorn, I think it's been through about 2 Kickstarters, or at least 2 fan-driven, money-driven events. It got the money. It got some money from backers as well. There was like a short preview demo out a little while back. I think they called it the prologue, which is basically like the first act. It's in acts. And I suppose that was the introduction to the puzzles. I think they did change it a little bit because I didn't play it. I know Dan was looking forward to Scorn, and it's your enjoyment of this is going to be depending on what you think it is when you're going into it. It's not a jump scare game. It is a scary game because it's gross body horror and alien. It's very, like, if you've not seen it, it's very H.R. Geiger inspired, like sometimes sometimes to parody. Like, I actually had to stop and laugh at a certain phallic statue, shall we say. Just
Oh my.
and that is not, it wasn't even the worst of it. There are a bunch of WTF moments in this game, but they're made even better by like no explanation. Like, what you get out of this is what you are seeing. You're definitely gonna have to go onto one of those YouTube ending explained stories for this, because I completed it twice, the ending, and I couldn't explain it to you. I couldn't even explain some of the puzzles to you, Mark. Like, I was trying to write a guide for a certain really difficult puzzle in one of the acts, and I couldn't understand how I did it. Like, I genuinely couldn't. I was looking back at my footage going, what did I do to solve it? It eventually, I worked it out, and I, had to try and explain it to other people. It's just, some people have been calling it obtuse, which I kind of agree with, but the sense of satisfaction you get when you finally solve it is incredible. But with that one in particular, I was like, I didn't get any satisfaction out of that because I don't know how I solved it. But yeah, extremely short game, full of puzzles. There's like one main puzzle for every act, and there's 5 acts. Lots of what the fuck and gross moments. But I really enjoyed my time with it. And if I had to describe it as like a genre, I wouldn't even call it a puzzle game. I'd call it like, you're kind of going through an experience, sort of like this like walking simulator type thing, but you're blocked by a puzzle every once in a while, which I found fun to solve mostly, but I can see how that would be polarizing if you just wanted that like horror alien vibe story without being blocked by a very difficult puzzle about 5 times. So yeah, what you want out of a game is what you're going to get out of Scorn, and I can see why it's some people's game of the year contender and why some people are just like, oh, I hate this game,
You had me at penis towers.
Mark, it's not even the half of it. This game is filled with alien penises and vaginas and some other things that I won't spoil, because it's just like, is this really happening right now? Like, is this a thing I'm doing in a video game? So writing the guides has been very interesting.
What kind of puzzles in particular?
Well, they're kind of, when you break them down, they're puzzles you've seen in other games before. Like one where you have to move their eggs, but blocks, basically. Move them around until you get the right block in the right place,
Gotcha.
And then the best way I could describe a bunch of the puzzles is, the old adventure games like Monkey Island and all, where it was just like, really, I have to do this to do this? Kind of a jump at certain points, but made better by, if you can interact with something, it'll glow white. So you kind of have to work out environmental puzzles. And then every once in a while, just you're here and you have to solve the block puzzle or the maze puzzle or something like that, which was fun. But I think it's the big environmental puzzles that are really pissing people off, because you have to run all about a level to try and like, whoa, what am I doing here? But fun when you get it. And again, yeah, you're right. It depends on like, what do you like out of a puzzle game,
For puzzle games for me, I love alien penises and vaginas.
Then Mark, I've got the game for you.
Add this to the add context. It's like not even human, it's like alien.
Yeah.
Very strict about that.
That's the other cool thing about this. You're just thrown into it and you don't know, is this humans in the future? Is this an alien race? What happened to this civilization? Is it still around? Is it not? Who are these creatures? What is this gun I have? I can't even call it pistol because it's not pistol. When I'm writing the guide, I'm like, the pistol-like weapon, the shotgun-like weapon. Oh, and another thing, don't go into this expecting any form of satisfying combat. That is it. There's very little combat in this, and when there is, it's kind of annoying. It's kind of a puzzle in itself. Like, how do I defeat this enemy, or how do I run past this enemy to get to the next area? Which is another complaint I've seen about it, which sort of agree with, but it wasn't ever really bad for me.
So you do have a pistol.
At a certain point, you get one. A pistol-like weapon. Yeah.
So I just wanted to see some images in the game, and top story. This is a true article title. Scorn is true to Geiger's work, but needs more dicks.
It does not need more dicks. End quote. Too many dicks. That's my review. Could do with
too many. It's like too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
You ever seen that video?
Yeah. Too many dicks. Too many dicks. That is
too many dicks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm already seeing like images from the game, and I don't know if this is like promo art or like stuff that's within the game,
Mhm.
but goddamn,
It is
it
it is
is cool.
it is beautiful looking game, and
And
this is an indie studio as well, by the way, which is why there were so many Kickstarters and,
yeah,
funding towards it. It was announced over 6 years ago, so it's been a while. And it is short, and maybe if you've been looking forward to it for a while, you're gonna get disappointed by the length, but it was, like, the perfect length in my opinion. If that obtuse puzzles and environmental storytelling like that with no dialogue went on for too long, I feel like I get a little bit sick of it, but I wasn't
mhm.
at all.
Why? And just make it clear, this is available on Game Pass, right?
Yes, so it's available on Game Pass. Not sure about Game Pass PC. Sorry, I
I
actually never
think it
looked into
is.
that. Cool. Then you can play it on Game Pass. So if you were like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it or not, yeah, it's part of the subscription.
Awesome. And this is random because we actually don't have any like news stories. So there's actually a lot of Oculus Meta news that came out in a presentation.
Mhm.
Some of it is just memes. Like, guess what, Jess? The metaverse has legs. I don't
What
mean
did I s
metaphorically. I mean actually physically has legs.
Yeah, I saw someone who's saying like, "Oh, the sequel to Arms has just dropped."
Yeah.
But legs.
And then, like, an actual cool thing, like, if you have I know it's the Meta Quest, I just call it the Oculus.
Yeah.
If you do have the Oculus, Iron Man VR, that was a PlayStation VR exclusive, is coming to Oculus. That is such a fun game. I can't highly request it enough. If you even like Iron Man, you'll love the game. And
Very cool.
especially feeling untethered with the wire, like, from the PlayStation VR.
Mhm.
And you being, well, kind of free, but you have to make your own boundaries. Like, that's gonna be pretty cool. And only because you mentioned Game Pass PC, you can play Game Pass like Game Pass PC games in the Oculus.
That's cool
That is
because
cool. I don't want to say ish. So Microsoft Flight Simulator
Mhm.
has like a VR mode, but it's like available for Steam. So like something like that will be really cool. But yet again, it's like, all right, I'm going to the metaverse to play Halo, which sounds so cool. But yet again, um, why?
Oh, so like you're is it just like playing the game through a VR headset? But you have
Yes.
to access it through the metaverse?
Yes. And it's like basically like your screen is like, whoa, I'm looking at this big screen like a theater and I can play games.
Oh, yeah, because PlayStation VR did that. I remember when I had it, I watched a wrestling show on it once. It was pretty cool, but,
Yeah.
I didn't need to get put in a metaverse for it.
So imagine you got to play God of War on that.
Well, I was think actually a couple of this is another thing I wanted to mention, which is some people have been like, clearly the puzzles weren't meant to be this complicated or whatever. They didn't put this through QA testers, whatever. They entirely did because they give us access. Anyone who had access to the game beforehand got put in a Discord server to help with the puzzles, so we could help each other out because some of us were writing the guide, some of us were reviewing it, so you could complete the game. They know they're complicated puzzles. It's not that they're bad at the puzzle making. They chose to do this.
Were
But
you
yes,
in the Discord server and be like, guys, where are the penises?
there wasn't actually a lot of penis talk in the Discord server,
And that's why I
surprisingly.
wasn't invited to the Discord, even if I had the chance. I would just derail the whole thing, and one of the mods would be like, "Mark,
There was a lot of
stop."
because one of the puzzles involves an eggs early on, so a lot of people got stuck on that. There was a lot of egg talk, and what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, somebody was like, I would like to play this in VR, and someone was like, "What? That's disgusting." But I thought, yeah, because this is like an experience of a game for me. It'd be really cool to look around and see this stuff in VR because it kind of would evoke a bit more cosmic horror. Because there's
That
certain
would be
things that
great.
happen in this where you're just looking up at this like incredible alien architecture and technology, and I feel like in VR that would be really cool. Like
And
really
especially
enhance the
interacting
experience.
with puzzles in VR, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'd be able to see a bit more into some what the puzzles were, or just a VR specific puzzle would be cool. I do like VR puzzle games.
Very cool. Anything else about Scorn?
Let's see, did I think I did go over everything. Yep. Like I said, just it's if none of that sounded good for you, and if you didn't have a Game Pass subscription, absolutely pass on it if you don't like puzzles like that or gross alien horror like that. And if you do, it's a pretty good game and short to complete too.
Absolutely pass on it. Game Pass it.
Wow. Xbox Phil Spencer.
Yeah.
We've got an idea.
History. Blank. That's period. That's it. And that's my pitch.
Hang up. Yeah. I feel like you get a dial tone after that.
But on to me, a game that I've been mentioning for a while. I remember, I think it was like our most anticipated game serve back half of 2022. Number 2 took a lot of people by surprise, but you're like, yeah, this seems like a Mark game. It's Bear and Breakfast. Hey, you're a bear and you run a bear and breakfast.
Is it a
It's
Mark
bed
game
and
then?
breakfast. What?
Yeah. Is it a Mark game then?
Oh, it's a Mark game. It's basically from the reviews I've been seeing, I have not played Stardew Valley, but it has very similar vibes.
That's enticing.
And I think one of the underrated parts about Bear and Breakfast is the humor. Not only through like the dialogue, but the facial expressions. Like there's one part where you talk to a beaver who's going to help you with construction. Because, you know, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So you play as Hank, this bear, and you're trying to like, I need some help. And the beaver's like, oh my God, you could talk. And it's no like actual like voice dialogue. It's just like text box, but you have like the facial animations. And the bear's like, really? And then Beaver's like, nah, I'm just kidding. And it's like that, it's cute and adorable. Just like very precious.
Yeah, I'm looking at screenshots now, and you're right, it looks like a bear and breakfast, Stardew Valley, basically.
Exactly. And the characters, you have your mama bear, you have a I don't know, I'm pretty sure it is a wolf or coyote friend and a mole friend. I don't know animals, Jess. I'm just realizing that right now. I'm like, it's a platypus.
Yeah, do the Scorn technique. It's a platypus-like animal.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
But it's like, and just like this like running gag, like the wolf or dog likes watching movies, but she always falls asleep halfway. She was like, yeah, I was watching a movie about a dog, Marley. I don't know what happens at the end. And just stuff like that. I feel like the one criticism I do have about this, it easily turns to dark. And what I mean like that, it can be like day, and all of a sudden, like I'm just looking around, like, huh, what should I have for dinner tonight? And I go back to the screen, and it's nighttime, and it feels like nighttime's forever. And I'm like, that kind of just ruins the. I don't know, just
Do they
ruins the
have
flow for me.
different tasks in like day and nighttime then?
No, you can be doing the same task, like the talk to the shark, mechanical shark, not a real shark.
Okay.
And then it's like, huh, what's going on outside? And you go back and it's like, it's nighttime. I don't know why, but then it's like, it's nighttime. It's like, oh, and it's quickly going to turn to day. No, you got to sleep it off.
Right.
And just like, I did start it, but I'm not that deep into it. Like, I'm building my bear and breakfast. I know it's a bed and breakfast, but bear and breakfast.
Yeah, you can have that name there and not use it.
That, and there is a little bit like a story. Like, it's not creepy a la like Bugsnax,
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of darkness, but it's like, huh, we're going a little deeper and a little I'm not gonna say edgy, just like basically we're talking about the equivalent of like like that sleep paralyzed demon.
Yeah.
That.
Oh, well, now
And
you've
it's
piqued my
like,
interest even more.
and I'm like, oh, this is in the beginning game. I don't know if it comes in. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
it's the
interesting.
beginning of the game, and Hank, your cute bear, is talking in this monologue about like his thoughts and all that. And I'm like, so when do I get to build my cabin?
Yeah. I feel like with these games, because I've also never played Stardew Valley, but I have played Stardew Valley likes. I talked about one on the podcast, Little Witch in the Woods, and it has a through line storyline, although it's an early access, so it's not done. And also I've been playing Disney Dreamlight Valley, which I've not talked about on the podcast yet. But
Ooh, talk about that.
well, it's I think it's the appeal of what the art style or what the IP, I guess, is for you coming into a Stardew Valley like game. Because I mean, I've always wanted to play Stardew Valley, but like Bear and Breakfast, I think I'd play over it just because of its cute art style, you know. And the same like this, it was Disney characters and Little Witch in the Woods. It was like witchcraft stuff. So I've played like things inspired by Stardew Valley and other types of games.
Breaking news: Jessica hates farmers.
No, and it sounds like a game I'd really like. Like, you even have like the romance options in it and a lot of like system management, which I like in games. Don't know why. Um, but I just feel like I'm very superficial when it comes to games. So you describing this cute bear and me looking at the images, I was like 100% in. I'd play this in a heartbeat. And then, but yes, sorry to circle back on the point I was going to make. Um, I, I don't feel like people mostly play it for the story. It is like the system management, like the farming or the bed and breakfast. But I like that it's there. So you're like, ooh, what is happening with this weird
Yeah,
sort of dark bear storyline?
it's not like build a house and then
Yeah.
that's it. Like, the game is very laid back. It's not like, I gotta do this right now. It's like, hey.
Hmm.
But that's why I kind of like the night thing. It's like, it doesn't make me feel laid back. You know what I mean?
Right. Got you. Yeah. That's
I
not what you're
want
playing
to
it for. Yeah.
like chill on the weather. And like, I'm surprised, like when you go to different areas and just like the look of it was not what I was expecting in a good way. I'm like, wow, the art is
Mm,
really good, especially for like an indie game like this.
yeah. Hmm.
And like how I'm not gonna say gothic because that's not really the right word. And it's just like these pointy trees and the rain's going down. It feels like, imagine, like those long videos on YouTube, they're 10 hours and they're like the atmospheric, like it'll be like jazz music and it'll be like people pouring coffee.
Yeah. I know them well.
So imagine that, but it was like Tim Burton's.
Tim Burton's. Yeah. Okay. He has
But
multiple of them. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he's not listening to Danny Elfman, but it's a smooth jazz.
Yeah. No, that sounds cool. Like, yeah, like you're playing these types of games for the feeling and the atmosphere that it evokes more than gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta solve the story, you know?
And I do like, I'm playing on the Switch, and I have talked about him before. Like, I do like how the Switch doesn't have achievements and trophies
Mhm.
because that's why I will play PlayStation 5. I will go trophy hunting. But yet again, like playing on a game, it's like I just play the game. It'll be like, oh, I gotta do this task, or oh my god, I missed this. I messed up. But Bear and Breakfast does have achievements.
Ooh, okay.
But I'm looking at it and it's like all easy stuff, and it's not like any quote skippable or That's not the word. It's not like, hey, you missed this part. Well, sorry.
Yeah, like if you play it enough, you'll get it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and just something like it's not like you gotta do like play this on extra hard difficulty. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, have a good time. Here's a star. And I'm like, thanks, Hank.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect Switch game, honestly. You're right. I'd pick this over Switch over some other console.
Like, even I mean, if it was on console, it would be cool. I would recommend it, but I feel like the laid back atmosphere of the Switch
Yeah.
is really cool. And why did all these tabs pop up? That's random.
Yeah, because I know the Switch version is new. Didn't it get? It was not delayed, but a different release date than the console and PC versions.
I feel like it technically didn't get delayed. I was a little disappointed. I thought it was supposed to come out before my birthday,
Mm,
but I was like, "Ooh, we haven't announced a Switch date." Basically, it was something with like the controller itself. They had to figure it out. So it
right,
was released last month in September.
right.
And I figured I'm gonna play Gotham Knights. I'll definitely talk about it next week.
Mm-hmm.
That was my number one game of like the year. And granted, that list was before God of War, so just keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
yeah,
I want to like say I played my games,
yeah,
but that's just me. But if you have a Switch, it's only $20. Good value, good laid back, very cute art style, some funny bits. Highly recommend. And Jess, we also have another game for each, but this is interesting because these are games that we've been talking about and hyping up,
yeah.
but we're playing each other's games because I see you're playing God of War.
I am indeed. Yes.
And
Well, I don't know if you or anybody listening remembers about me just talking about. You know what? I see why people like God of War, but it's just not for me. Like it's one of
yes,
those big games I just couldn't get into. And I'm here to tell you, I have never been more wrong about a game in my entire life.
let's go.
I don't know what was going on in my life 2 years ago where I was like, "Oh, this just isn't for me," but I thought I'd
And,
give it a try because I'm
and
probably going to cover God of War Ragnarok, so I was like, "I need some context of what's going on," you know?
and granted, I will come to your defense. Like sometimes you're not in the mood to like play a game or watch something, or it doesn't appeal to you right there. But then you
Mhm.
revisit it like moments later, and it's like, ooh, because that was some hesitancy with me with God of War because I'm like, I don't know these old games, and
Mm,
someone's like, you don't need to. They
mhm.
reference it a lot, some plot points, but trust me, you won't even notice.
Well,
So
there's No, go ahead.
I just like, all right, let's just focus on this story. And I
Mhm.
was immediately hooked.
Well, for me, it was a long tradition of wanting to like God of War games and never getting into them. I've said it before, my favorite one has been the PSP one because I despise the controls in every God of War game. Like, I hate them so much. I'm not a fan of that hack and slash gameplay, and I don't like where they map the buttons. Um, but I feel like this is another idea for a good podcast as well, because this happened with the original Bioshock. It took me 3 tries to get into Bioshock, and that one was because I
Me
couldn't get any
too.
more. I could really.
Well, not 3, but it took me like 2 times. And then I finally got into it. And I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, let's go.
Yeah, like, that's a really good thing to talk about, like, I only tried so many times because there was a limited amount of games I could play, you know? It was my brother's game collection, basically, I was taking from. I was like, "I'll give Bioshock another go." This was for a different reason, and I feel like one of the reasons is because I give it more of a chance this time. Like, I only played until, maybe, like, 2 hours into the game, maybe not even the first time, and I was like, "Okay, I get what this sort of gameplay is like, and I get this is a different type of story and a different type of Kratos, but it's just not for me, I don't want it." I had no idea what this game really was, like, I just didn't. I didn't realize it was such a like, sort of like a hybrid open world type game, like, you're exploring the lake and all of the customization you could do with Kratos' armor and the runes and the enchantments, which really improved the combat for me. Like, my biggest complaint with the combat in this is I hate that the axe recall button isn't the same as the throw button, basically.
I
It
I get that.
it messes me up so much in combat, and I'm like just clicking and random things are happening. I'm like, I hit it. But I understand now because I got further on. I'm like, oh, you need to have a different button for puzzles, like environmental puzzles, which is another thing which I absolutely love about the game. Just the exploring and coming across like a hidden area somewhere, and then getting into, well, how do I get that in the other corner? How am I supposed to solve this? And how you use Atreus and his arrows, which I love, fully upgraded them where I am so far, which is about vague spoilers, I guess. I drained the lake for I guess the final time. I've done it twice and I'm on to that area next. And the only reason I haven't been playing more of it because I had like I played it a lot on Saturday night, and then when I got back from babysitting, I played it a lot on Sunday night, and sort of work got away with me in the week. But I am just desperate to go and play it again. But Plague Tale's out on Tuesday, and Call of Duty's out on Tuesday.
Oh,
But I was totally wrong about this. I'm still not in love with the combat, but it is like vastly improved with like the RPG. I also didn't know it was like an RPG type thing where you get to, improve
customized.
your
Yeah.
customize your builds, and I absolutely love that. I can't remember if it's called enchantment or talisman, but you put it on your axe and you can shoot a beam of ice out of it.
Yes.
Oh my god, that was just like that's what I'm doing for the majority of combat.
Let me ask you, has he gotten I don't know why my voice cracked. Maybe I'm just so excited. Has he gotten any other weapons?
No. Oh,
Okay.
does he get other weapons?
He gets another main weapon, and that's all I'll
Okay.
say,
That's interesting.
besides the axe.
Yeah, I'm thoroughly invested, and while I've never liked Kratos as a character. He was just always an angry, shouty guy, and
And it
he
was just like rage, like it's interesting how you didn't fall in love with the combat because I never
mhm,
played the games. Like I would just watch my sister play these games, and I'm like, okay.
yeah. Like, I
I'm
love
like,
the
uh
mythology behind it. Like, I don't know if that's why you were watching it. That's why I was interested in trying God of War games because of the Greek mythology. Also, why I didn't think I'd like this because I'm not as into the Norse stuff as I am to the Greek mythology. So I'm like, well, if I didn't like them, I'm not gonna like this. Um, but totally wrong because it's sort of like whenever you see the is it the frost giant snake? I can't remember its name.
the world serpent.
Yes, the world serpent. You're just like looking up, and it's
Oh yeah,
like a Final Fantasy summon moment. You're like, that's incredible. Just seeing him in the distance, like while you're rolling in the boat, it seeps the world in the mythology, and uh, I think it's so well laid out. Even the Metroidvania sort of elements, like you can't get to this until you get this thing for Atreus or whatever. I was not aware that this world was so massive. For one, I didn't realize this was such a long game. I assumed it was more like a Last of Us story driven
mhm.
game, which it is. It very much is story driven, but it's a lot more of exploration and puzzle solving, which, as you know, I love in games. So yeah, complete 180 with it. I'm sure you all know how good God of War is, but not now I know, and I don't have that long to wait for Ragnarok, which I'm excited for.
Oh, it's coming soon.
Yep, yep.
Um, anyone who has beaten the 2018 God of War, and yes, as soon as you like tell me you're done with the 2018, I'll send you
Hmm.
this. There is this video, like this masterful video on YouTube. It's called Untangling God of War. The channel is called Good Blood, and it breaks down like how this game twists the Norse mythology
Hmm.
and like all the creative stuff, and it's just so well told, so well edited. And even Corey Backlog was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing. Highly
Wow.
recommend you watch this."
Yeah, I definitely will.
But only if you've beaten the game, because super spoiler.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just so excited to have another huge. I was waiting until I was going to do the podcast. Immediately after, I'm going to play God of War again and have like a 6 hour session on it because there's been a couple of sessions that really reminded me of playing Elden Ring, which is weird because this came out before Elden Ring, but I just get lost in the world so much,
Mhm.
just exploring, even doing the combat because it got better later on. Just a really really cool world to explore, and I love it so much.
That and just like the relationship between Kratos and Atreus is just so well done. And how it evolves, especially from the start of the game, is so good.
I'm very curious to see how that ends because I still don't like Kratos right now, even though I'm controlling him, which is, I guess, another issue with the game. But he's never been this sort of character archetype who I'd be drawn to. But it is very interesting his relationship with his son right now because I'm really like rooting for Atreus at every moment, every
Oh yeah,
lesson Kratos is trying to tell. I'm like, no, just leave him alone. But I'm very interested to see how that ends.
like I feel like Kratos is always going to be a dick, but it's like,
Yeah,
man, that's a kid. That's your
yeah,
kid.
yeah.
But then it's like, okay, I'm not going to say I understand, but that's how he expresses love.
Yeah, he is the god of war after all, I guess. We should all keep in mind. But yeah, and I'm also very interested to see because I don't really check out dev interview. Well, I didn't check out dev interviews before this because I thought I wasn't interested. But I know this is supposed to be a geology, so this story is ending with Ragnarok. Are they going to continue someone else's story and like a God of War type thing, go to a different mythology? Like that's very interesting of where they could go.
So we don't know. So this is going to end like the Norse mythology per
Oh, they've
se.
said no more Norse.
Well, I don't know, but like instead of like a trilogy of games, like they
Yeah.
have come out and said like we don't want like this came like first God of War came out in 2018. This one
Mhm.
is coming out end of 2022. How many more like 4 or 5 more years until you'll play like 26, 27? So
Mhm.
instead of waiting that, it'll just wrap up here. What happens to Kratos? We don't know. Is Atreus gonna be like the main hero? We don't know, and that's why I'm so excited for Ragnarok.
Yeah, that's interesting to me too. I like, is it going to be Atreus? Is it going to be? I feel like Kratos, in my mind right now, I sort of not has to retire. Like I know he's like the iconic God of War, but with such a good story going on with Atreus, and I haven't even finished it, he could be a new, or any of the gods in this could be a new main character. You could have God of something else. You know, like it really is kind of now that they've went to a different mythology, it's kind of limitless where they can go now.
I mean, in the next game, you meet the God of War, the Norse mythology,
Yeah. Mhm.
that big old tall guy.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. Different gods of wars and different mythologies. Yeah.
And just like thinking back of like the 2018, they only revealed so much, and like Ragnarok is going to reveal like everything because you
Mm.
see like base not the world map, but like like that circular thing. Like you can go to this realm.
Yeah.
There's realms that are locked.
Yes.
Some of them you can't access at all. But now it's like, ooh, the next game we're going to that.
Yeah.
And new worlds and Odin and as you seen from the trailers, Thor that we talked about, and how Ragnarok, the end of days. What's gonna happen?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm hyped. And then I'm hyped I don't have to wait that long either, right after finishing this story too. So sorry
That's
for
why
your
I'm
two
just
two
so
year or sorry,
jealous.
4 year wait. Yeah.
It was more like a 2-year wait for me, but
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But that 2 years, Jess, it killed my grandma. This is canon. I have to transport her ashes up the highest mountain, aka my couch, and play this game. And once I hit the platinum, I will release her ashes, which is awkward because she was buried. So I have to dig her up.
There's a puzzle right there.
Is it? Oh, please tell me it's not a Scorn puzzle. But I'm so happy. Oh my god, you have like a little over 3 weeks. And by the time you guys are listening to this, like I guess 3 weeks until
Mhm.
God of War.
What a time to be alive.
Like that's why I'm excited for Gotham Knights.
Mhm.
I mean, we won't talk about it. Like, it sucks the news about like 30 frames per second being capped at consoles.
Yeah.
It's not a deal breaker. It just kind of feels like a little cheated that we're finding out a couple days beforehand.
Mhm. Yeah, fair
But yet
point.
again, I've played, I play games on the Switch. You think
Yeah.
I'm like, where is my 60 frames per second? No. And it's like the big co-op,
Mhm.
an open world 4-player co-op with that kind of like is insanity and all that. But I am excited because I'm like, all right, I'm invested in Gotham Knights. Hopefully that will tide me over.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
won't, but at least until like the last week.
Well, I also didn't get to talk about this because I wasn't on last week, but another game that you recommended to me that I played was Plague Tale Innocence. Another game I only had to wait a few weeks to play because of it. Like, I really loved it. Like, spoiler alert, it was incredible. Thank you very much, Mark, because you're the only person who really pushed me to play that. Nobody else was talking about it. Yeah, I saw.
I
Um,
remember, like when you see, it's only happened a few times in my life. You're watching a video on YouTube, and then all of a sudden, like, here's an ad for a trailer,
mhm.
but you're so invested in the trailer.
Yeah.
There's like two moments I know vividly. One is a movie called Anna and the Apocalypse.
Oh, great movie.
Oh, you like?
Oh man, I love it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That's amazing soundtrack.
Oh, so good.
Amazing, amazing. And another one before that was Plague's Tale Innocence. And I'm like, what is this game? And I'm
Mm.
like, I've never heard of this. Is this an indie game? This looks like a triple A, like it comes out from like a big studio. And then I saw the price tag, I'm like, $50. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna wait a bit. But I'm like, damn. But
Yeah,
even like an indie game, I don't even know if you can call it an indie game, but I felt like at that time of like this really unknown studio getting a ton of hype. I'm like, you know what? I can see why it's $50.
mhm.
I'm not gonna pay it just yet, but I'm happy I played it. I'm excited for Requiem.
I was gonna say, are you gonna play Requiem? Are you gonna try and play it before Gotham Knights? Because it's out
I
in it'll be out by the time this podcast is up, actually.
That is true.
Mm.
I mean, I'm getting an Xbox. That's a
Ah,
weird Christmas
yes.
day.
Game
Yes.
Pass, a weird Christmas Day game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll play High on Life. The
Play all the Forzas, all the
I'll
Halos.
play Scorn.
Sc Alright, family, settle down, it's score time.
All right. Mom, help me solve the egg puzzle.
Hey, mom, look at all these dicks.
Not the first time I said that to her. What's the context? I don't know.
Cut that out.
Never.
Yeah.
But so speaking of, so why am I not gonna play Pig's Tail Requiem? Well, that and I don't even know how long the game is.
Mm,
Like, I always say, like, I wish I didn't have a job. It's like, no, I actually do wish I had this job. This is a good job. But it's like, man, you gotta really like game manage.
yeah. Mhm.
I've been playing a game you've been hyping up. I've been looking at it for a long time. Alan Wake Remastered.
Yeah, part of our game swap. Mine God of War, yours is Alan Wake. Well, Mark, how are you liking Alan Wake? Safe space, it's okay if you don't like it.
Good, because I loved it.
Yay! I was only joking. I would have booted you out of the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no,
But
I'm glad. So, because this is, I'm curious. Because see, whenever I like push people towards a game, like, oh no, this is really good. Because I played it at the time, I don't know whether it holds up. Does Alan Wake hold up?
that one holds up. I mean, of course, this is a remaster, not a full on remake.
Mhm.
The environments are really beautiful and great. The facial animations, no, but I'm not expecting much.
Boy, Mark, did they mess up? Is it Barry? It is Barry Wheeler, isn't it, your friend?
Yes.
His face is something else in this remaster. It's scary.
It's better than my face.
No.
Aww.
Yeah, that's a bare minimum compliment right there. No, Mark, your face is better than the Barry Wheeler remastered face. That's the only one where I'm like, man, did they mess that up?
So you mentioned this in review that it does look odd that the cutscenes are 30 frames per second. Speaking of frames per second,
Yep.
versus 60 in
Mhm.
gameplay. I didn't mind as much because I'm like, okay, remastered. Like, if it happened now, that
Yeah.
would be pretty weird. But I feel like the biggest two issues before I go on positives is the enemy variety
Fair point. Yeah.
is pretty weak for me. It's like, oh, another axe guy. Ooh, like, of course they're all shadow people. But I'm like, wait a
Yeah.
second. If you're taken over by the shadow, are you killing the townspeople?
Mm-hmm.
Damn, Alan Wake has a body count.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm playing it. I'm like, I am gonna kill these people, but I'm like, damn.
He's a machine. Alan Wake the Terminator, yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. And then the two, so if you don't know the gameplay mechanics, how you defeat enemies, you shine a flashlight on them, which gets rid of their darkness, aka the shield. They're still gonna attack you, so you kill them with your weapon, standard whatever weapon, guns, pistols, shotguns, rifles, and all that. So, but when you're aiming to kill these people, it's the same button that you have with your flashlight. So you're wasting your flashlight on aiming these enemies. You can just straight up, like, without any aiming, be like, boom, boom, and just hope it hits. And especially since you're close up. But I wish there was like L1 is how you shine your flashlight and not have the same aim slash flashlight as the same button. And if you
Yeah.
tell me I could have switched that, I would be so mad.
No, I don't think you can. You can just, well, look at the enemy and not zoom in, but then you're not as accurate, which is what I tended to do instead of
And it
like
and it's
holding the
not like this
flashlight
game is in
down.
the dark.
Yeah, no, your flashlight's still kind of up when you do it. That's my only like tip. So whenever you've got the shields down, don't zoom in. Just shoot at them normally. But you're right, it's not very intuitive when you're used to just pressing this button to aim and that button to shoot.
Mhm.
The combat, yeah, it's not fantastic. I think when I go back and play it, it's fine because I'm used to it, but it's not intuitive, and sometimes it really is not fun, especially those weird shadowy things that just throw things at you. Have you came across one of them yet?
I hate it.
Oh,
I'm like,
well,
where are you coming from?
yeah, it's
It
just like,
feels
oh, I'm
like
just getting
Austin
hit.
Powers. It's like, who throws an axe? Honestly.
Yeah, it's annoying. But yeah, Alan Wake for me has always been about that like Stephen King, like Pacific Northwest spooky atmosphere, which is why I always recommend it to people who aren't
Yes.
even who do get scared in horror. I'm like, you could totally play Alan Wake. It's more about the atmosphere than I think I got jump scared once. Don't know about you. Where are you actually? Yeah, like what chapter? Or...
I just started chapter 4.
Oh, okay. Pretty far
I've
into
been
it,
on a
yeah.
hard binge, and I'm thankful that, and right now if you're listening in the present, the game on PlayStation is just $16, which great deal.
Wow. Yeah, man.
So, like, as soon as it started, like, Alan's like narration is very like he's writing this. You know what I mean? It's like that opera voice,
Mhm.
like I
Yep.
stepped into the woods and then figure out. It's like that kind of hooked me because it's a little cheesy, but I love that.
It is, yes, it's like yeah, it's got that cheese going on to it, and it's actually very appropriate that you're playing this because that's what the Midnight Club was about, telling stories, and it opens up like that,
Exactly.
you know? Yeah. And
And it's
it's
like, is this happening? And I've mentioned, like, I know the soundtrack, but how it's
mhm.
implemented,
Oh,
very
yeah.
cool.
Did you get to the very cool music moment yet then? You have, haven't you?
No.
On the farm?
No.
Oh, you're very close then. It is like, have you played Control?
Have I know they well, I don't know if they always have a music moment, but when I got to you play Control, right?
Yeah.
That music moment
Mhm.
was, like, one of my favorite gaming moments of all time.
Oh, yeah, same. And I feel like you don't get that moment in Control without this moment in Alan Wake because they were like, "Oh, this works." It's a different gameplay thing, but it's oh man, their
Wait,
Remedy are so
Alan Wake is
so
not gonna, like, fly and be OP,
honestly, in this game he could, you know? It's weird enough.
and now it's like, "Okay, you're feeling what I'm feeling, so you play this, I don't know when." Now with, next year, reportedly, I'm only saying reportedly because dates can always change.
Yeah.
Officially, Alan Wake 2 is coming out
You're right, yeah, I've been waiting a very long time for this. When did the original Alan Wake come out? 2009?
2010.
2010, so what,
Yeah,
12 years, and then it
13
didn't.
years.
Remedy are very good at going on to new IPs, whether I don't know whether because it didn't make enough money or because they just really like doing new ideas. I think it might be a combination of both because, you know, Max Payne got sequels, but yeah, Alan
Maybe
Wake 2 is the one that everyone's like, "Please give us a sequel." It was, like, so open-ended, and, you know, it even got that DLC in Control. Like, this is, like, I feel like it's the fan favorite Remedy, property, and yeah, been waiting for a sequel for a very long time. Super, super excited for it, especially because it's going in more survival horror. Like, this is sort of, like, cheesy, spooky stuff, whereas this seems he did come out and say survival horror. That's what they're
even,
going for with
like,
the
the
sequel.
teaser for Alan Wake 2 and that little jump scare, I'm like, I didn't see anything like that in the first game,
No, seems like a very different vibe, yeah.
but and so that makes me real excited, and that I feel like Alan Wake is a great Halloween game
Yeah,
for me to
definitely.
play right now, and just a quick recommendation, we did a whole podcast, Spoilercast on it. Go play The Quarry.
Yep, another great Halloween game. Until Dawn, Quarry, Alan Wake, yeah.
Oh, Alan Wake, Scorn. I
If you were
that counts, it's horror,
dear.
but Alan Wake, very good game. Just the
I
atmosphere, the voice acting, the psychological mystery of like, what happened with Alice? Wait, I'm here, but like psych it's not psychological like douche douchey. You know what I mean? It's not like, what does it all mean? It's like, no,
it can be a little like that,
I
but
maybe because I had my expectations low because I'm like, ah man, like anytime someone says like it's a psychological horror, I'm like, all right.
yeah. I feel like this really benefits from Alan being a writer because a lot of it is about the process of writing and, like, muses and like metaphors, like stuff that's going on. This is metaphor, which you can be like, oh, okay, but then you get this really cool atmospheric horror game out of it,
But
and
yet
it's
again, your description of like Stephen Kane, and I'm like, I
yeah,
totally like that blankets any excuse I have or
yeah,
issue
hmm
with like the writing or the performances. I'm like Stephen Kane. I'm like, yes.
yeah, very much Stephen King inspired this. Like this is Stephen King the video game. You know, if you've ever read one of his books with a writer protagonist, this is basically it. Which whether you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But I sometimes it goes maybe a little bit too much into the, "Well, this is what this could mean," but I feel like it always pulls it back when it goes too far, and it is
Exactly.
like yeah, it's like, you know, it's not mystical, but you get what I mean, like, it's not
It's supernatural.
supernatural, thank you, that's the word, yeah, supernatural horror doesn't tend to be grounded as much as other horror. and it works with Alan Wake, in my opinion.
Awesome. So that is all the games we've been playing this week. Since we don't have any news segments, we just went full into the games we're playing. That's a good future podcast idea. Game swap.
Yeah, I'm into that one. Yeah.
What game? I don't know, but we'll figure it out one of these days. And the topic of Stephen King kind of translates well to our main topic because Netflix released another Mike Flanagan project, The Midnight Club. So we will be talking just general what we thought of it. We won't go into spoilers until we'll give you a fair warning beforehand, and boom. So I want to ask you before we talk about The Midnight Club itself, Jessica, what is your familiarity with Mike Flanagan?
Yeah, so I guess I was watching his stuff before I realized I was watching his stuff. It's one of those ones. Like Oculus, I'd seen and really enjoyed his horror film. And Hush, which was on the other spectrum. I didn't really enjoy Hush. And I think there's a few others, but I can't really remember. We were talking about this before. I tend to forget what he's directed. Film wise.
Ouija. Well, he's done Doctor Sleep.
Yes.
The sequel to The Shining, which impossible task, but I think he just hit it out of the park. He did Gerald's Game, adaptation of a Stephen King, either novel or short story. I don't know.
Yeah, novel. Yeah.
For Netflix, Hush was a Netflix one, and we looked at the list because we talked about doing like a ranking of Flanagan stuff, but it's like, wait, he did this, he did that. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, oh, I didn't see this one.
Yeah, like that's why I feel like when we are keep the movies out, because I assume you've seen all of the Mike Flanagan Netflix shows as well.
Yes.
Yeah, same. So I feel like everyone, like, that's exactly where I know him from. You know, he got big with Haunting of Hill House, and then was less involved with Bly Manor, but still obviously involved. And then Midnight Mass, and now this. And yeah, I'd call myself a really big fan, especially after Midnight Mass. Like that was so good. One of your like must-watch things on Netflix, basically.
I am so happy that so when we have like the cute little headlines and like headings, we call that flavor text. And my flavor text for the Midnight Mass review I did for KeenGamer, which you can check out on KeenGamer.com, wink, is Thou Must Binge Watch.
Yeah, that was a good one, Mark. Yeah.
Also, I did the review for Werewolf by Night. So Michael Congino, I always butcher his last name. He directed and scored the special.
Mm-hmm.
So when one of my headings was he shoots, he scores.
Well done, Mark.
That's the best one I'll ever do, and there's no topping that.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a 10 out of 10. Yeah.
That's like, oh, that's a 10 out of 10. That's I had a like, should I retire? It's just that good. But anyway, back to Flanagan. I like, it wasn't until Bly Manor, I'm like, oh my god, he did all these things.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh my god, this guy's a genius. Like, I'm like, all right, anything he comes out with, I'm in. And then Midnight Mass came, and that is my favorite project he's ever done.
Yeah, same. And it was like, he's known, especially for Netflix, for adapting things more than his own original work. That was his original idea, and all stemmed from him. It wasn't an adaptation. Technically, it was. Do you remember seeing the book of Midnight Mass in one of his films?
Well, yes, I think it was Hush. And
Yes.
Midnight Mass was originally a novel he's going to write, but he decided to turn that into a miniseries.
Yeah, so technically he adapted it from his own work, which is just funny to think about. Obviously he didn't, but yeah.
It's not like he intended it. He's like, ooh, what does it mean? It's like, oh, well, This is how it actually turned out.
Yeah, it was like a cute pre-Easter egg or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I love all his works. And what was your expectations for the Midnight Mass? Have you read any of the Christopher Pike books?
Because I knew it was a Mike Flanagan project and I knew it was coming out soon, I actually didn't look into any of it. I was never aware of the books. I didn't know who Christopher Pike was. I didn't know if he was more famous in America than over in the UK or Europe, but had never heard of the Midnight Club, had never heard of any of his other works. And only actually knew after watching the show, I was like, oh, is this an adaptation? It said adapted from the credits. So I was like, I'm going to check the site. And I bought the book actually. So no, I had no idea what this was before I even pressed play on the first episode, which was good in some ways and bad in others because I was not expecting the young adult theme of it because it is different than his other works, which has dealt with more like grown up adults characters than this young adult a group.
As in, you didn't know, like, did you watch any of the trailers beforehand?
Nope, not a thing.
I did. I'm like, okay, young adult, whatever. Mike Flanagan, I'm in.
Have you read any of the books before? Were you aware of them?
I think they were before my time.
Yeah, I think I looked it up. It was like 80s they started coming out.
Like, I was a Goosebumps kid.
Yeah, same. Yeah. That feels like this feels like Goosebumps before Goosebumps.
But yet again, it's like Goosebumps is like, ooh. Well, this feels like, ooh.
Yeah. It does have a different vibe, but I feel like because this is a Netflix project and they're known for all their young adult stuff, it felt more like a Netflix young adult project than it did a Mike Flanagan project to me a lot of the time. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, it was just a different vibe.
You know why? Because this is his first TV show. As in, this is season one, but it's not like a mini series. So that kind of threw me off
Yeah.
at first. And then I
Mhm.
realized, like, oh, wait a second. They're probably going to do like a season two.
Which again, I didn't know until I looked into afterwards because no spoilers when it ended. I was like, "Are you serious?"
It's like, wait,
I'm
what?
used to getting answers from his stuff. Like you're right, it's a mini series. He has a start, middle, ending. He's told his story, and this I'm just like, "What?"
Because I'm like, wait, what? It's not like what was happening. It's more of like, huh? Usually, like at this point, like everything gets really ramped up, and we're getting
Mhm.
answers, but not like big, huge reveals. But
Yeah, like there was two underlying big questions, not of the stories that the kids were telling, but of the hospice its story that were just left there because I didn't know it was seasonal. Which, to be fair, is on me. I didn't look into anything on this because I was like, it's Mike Flanagan. I'll watch it. It's fine. It it felt little underwhelming the ending.
we'll definitely talk about that. And me trying to be like, okay, I get it. For anyone who doesn't know what the show's about, it's these group of terminally ill children. Shouldn't say children, young adults,
Yeah,
teens.
teens. Yeah.
Yeah. God, I'm so old. I'm like, these kids, these buckos. But they all stay at this place for the terminally ill. Basically, I don't want to say like an orphanage, but what would you call this place?
Well, they call it a hospice, but it's like I guess you call it like a fancy hospice.
Yeah, look, it's a cool hospice.
Yeah, like it's for them to live out the rest of their life basically with people of their own age to have their own
Which,
agency.
yeah, that's basically hospice care. Well,
Yeah.
okay, hospice care is basically like someone who is like about to die, transitioning them, like okay, like working out all the steps, stuff, making them comfortable.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
imagine
that's
like, what if we put these kids together and they made out? Okay, that's just a simplification, but so they have a group called the Midnight Club. Every midnight, they go down, they tell scary stories. It's basically Are You Afraid of the Dark? Except these kids are not losers and they're Actually, yeah, they're not losers. You ever seen Are You Afraid of the Dark? Do you know what I'm
It's
talking about?
actually I have heard of it, but I'd never watched it myself. It was my 2 older brothers had watched it, and they loved it. I skipped it on my horror introduction when I was younger.
Uh, I don't want to say it doesn't hold up.
I
It
mean,
doesn't.
it is a kids show, right? It's like Goosebumps.
It is, but how I viewed it, I'm like, oh my god, what is this adult stuff?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
what? And like these kids of like, yeah, we're in the woods and we have a campfire and we throw some dust in and we tell the scary story. And it's like these Midnight Club are terminally ill children. Go home, losers.
God. Real shade on Are You Afraid of the Dark here?
Are you afraid of the shade?
Good one, Mark.
Thank you.
That's why you shouldn't have retired. Well done. Good decision.
It's
Continue.
no he shoots, he scores. But anyway, so they have like a deal with all each other. If one of them dies, they'll send a message via the afterlife. And it turns out this hospice care has some spooky stuff going on. But we'll get into all that. I won't say a rating before we go into the Spoilercast. Would you recommend The Midnight Club?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Yeah. Mhm. Sort of going into more detail on that, it's probably on my end, like from my experience watching it, just watch a trailer beforehand, get yourself familiar with it, and then to know what you're in for. And obviously, there's going to be other seasons, which will alter probably how you feel about the ending.
Exactly. Like, I thought like his other like shows, which are all miniseries, I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, resolution with some open-ended questions. And it's like, no, this is a TV show with seasons of details that will be picked up in a season 2.
Yeah.
It's like, ah. So just keep that in mind before going in hand. I realized that like halfway, it didn't deter like my viewing. I loved the Midnight Club. Mike Flanagan, he does not miss.
Yeah, fair point. I would recommend all of his, at least his Netflix shows. A couple of movies that didn't land with me, but yeah, he is fantastic at telling a story in the TV medium.
I mean, this podcast is gonna come out yada yada yada. Couple of days. I say definitely watch both like any like The Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass. We can give our own rankings, but honestly, if you watch one of those 3 shows, you're gonna be in for a great time for the Halloween season.
Oh yeah, like imagine not having seen any of these and just having them being able to stack them up one after one.
Jealous.
Mhm.
And personally, Midnight Mass is one of the few 10 out of 10s I've gave to KeenGamer.
If I
I think
was
it was my
personally
first one.
I would have given it a 10 too, Mark. Yeah, incredible television. Yeah.
Watch Midnight Mass first. That's
Yeah, I feel like I was going to be like leave our rankings to the end, but number one, you should watch Midnight Mass. Yeah.
there's no
But then
viewing order.
but
You
then
can
do you
watch
wanna, like,
anything you
build
want.
it up? Do you wanna build it up to be like, what is probably the best one, you know?
I already gave my what's the best one.
No, I mean, like, with someone just watching, like, should they start with the weakest and work their way up or strongest and work their way down? But to be fair,
I
they're
would
all
start with
great.
Bly Manor, which is fantastic, but out of like his miniseries, that
Mhm.
is what ranks third out of third,
Mm.
to put
But do
it
you wanna
delicately.
just rank them now? Because we don't need
Yeah,
to go into spoilers for it. Yeah, you go. What's your ranking of them?
of
Of
like
all
the
4, not even just the miniseries.
um I would go Midnight Club number 4, only because we don't know the whole story yet.
Mm.
That's the advantage the other 3 has, but it is still fantastic. Um, it's gonna sound like really, but just hear me out. If you like young adult adventures, a la Stranger Things, that's like if you don't know Mike Flanagan and someone likes Stranger Things, just say, just I don't know, watch it.
Watch Midnight Club?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a very, if you've ever watched the Fear Street movies on Netflix, it reminded me quite a bit of them.
Okay, that's a way better example than Stranger Things. I'm like, wait a
No,
second. I'm like,
I get what you mean, because it's like mass appeal, young adult stuff, you know?
exactly. Not so
Mm,
much the threats they face and how much of the supernatural you get.
yeah.
Number 3 is Bly Manor. I love Bly Manor. I think it just had the disadvantage of like it came after Hill House and that really blew up.
Mm,
So people expecting like something like that. It was, but it wasn't, and it was a good amount of different. Hill House is number 2. It's a classic for a reason. If you have not watched it, watch it right now. But personally, I mean, finish this podcast. Actually, wait, you haven't watched Midnight Club. Stop. What are you doing? Don't spoil yourself. But thanks for listening.
yeah, thank you.
Midnight Mass is number 1. How they explore religion and faith and loss and grief and the scares and the acting performances and the setting of this coastal like main town and all the characters and what they go through and like Christianity and the Muslim religion is, and I don't want to spoil like what the threat is, but a very unique take.
Oh, it was so good. And it is one where, you know, we were talking about the Midnight Mass didn't really get that amp up. Midnight Mass so did. It was the big build up and then just the big conclusion, you know?
Because Midnight, I don't want to say slow, like it takes its time because
Hmm.
it sets up this whole town, everything that's going on, and what Midnight Mass is. I should have explained the other shows. It centers on Riley, who a couple years ago um, killed a young girl in a drunk driving accident. He's released from prison and he goes back to his hometown, this coastal main town that's on the island, and is a very small community. And all of a sudden, one day, their old priest gets replaced by this young guy. And then it just sets the ball in motion.
Yeah, slow burn, but in a really good way. I was never left at the end of an episode being like, well, that was a bit boring. Because all of the characters, as well as the story, is very interesting.
And the performances and the twist, and like you really care about these characters.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when
And Samantha, is it Samantha Slow as Bev is,
oh
oh my God, so good. And I wasn't really aware of her before, but she probably, oh, I don't know. Hamish Linklater was pretty good too, but my God, everyone was just so on point with their acting
she
in this.
was, you love to hate her.
Oh yeah, she is the definition of
Like
love to hate a
you
character.
like I'm sorry for my language, but it's like, oh, what a cunt.
That's
It
it.
really is.
That's it, Mark. Yep. You're like, oh, but man, it's interesting watching
But it's
her,
like,
isn't it?
oh, you
Yeah.
ugh. But it's like without any context, when she says dirty blood, I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, a performance that will just incite anger in you, but man, is it good to watch, you know?
and I mean this in the highest compliment to both actors. It is Joffrey like from Game of
Yeah,
Thrones.
that is a good comparison. Yeah.
And the sheriff and all that. So it's 7 episodes long, or
Mhm.
8. I think it's 7.
7, yeah.
So a lot of episodes, but it's a mini series and all that. So the second half of episode 6, I've never been on the edge of my seat, yelling at my TV, going, "Oh no! Oh whoa! 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 Whoa!" And it's just because everything is just building up to this climax, and it happens, and it's like, what?
Yeah, it was incredible. It was so good. And it was made even better by like I don't know if anyone I've read your review, I didn't read anybody else's review. But it was very from dusk till dawn, you know, like make the characters in the foreground to begin with, build them all up, and then boom, here's the horror, you know?
Yeah, except these characters are okay. I don't want to say From Dusk Till Dawn is not likable, but
Oh yeah. Just the general concept of doing that. Mike Flanagan did a much better job because it's a TV show as well.
yeah, it's a
Fleshing it
TV
out
show,
more.
and you get these layers that come out of like, okay, this is happening, this scare, this creature, and everything that builds up, and just like the monologues and that. Oof. Is your rankings the same as mine?
I'm not sure about but definitely Midnight Mass is number one. I'll do it the opposite. Midnight Mass number one. Everything we've said, it's like necessary Netflix viewing. And even if you aren't really a fan of horror, this would be one where I'm like, please watch it
And
because you're right. The way it explores just like human interaction with each other and the Catholic faith and other faith, like Muslim faiths, like Raul Coley is the sheriff.
I love Eddie Flanagan and Raul is just chef's kiss.
Yeah,
And I love that like he uses like the act like it's not surprising a lot of people do is like he uses the actors he likes.
Yeah.
And it works so well. And we'll talk about the actors in Midnight Club. You mentioned like if you're not a fan of like horror, my mom hates horror. And when I say like she loves all of Flanagan's like Netflix stuff, it's not like, oh, so it's not scary. No, it's scary, but she's so drawn into these characters and the world building and the performances, and it leaves you more. That's why Flanagan's so good.
Yeah, he knows to prioritize character over a cheap jump scare, which he doesn't even do a lot of cheap jump scares.
We'll talk about the cheap jump scares in Midnight Club. It's still in a good way. Because it's more of a commentary. But anyway.
Yeah.
Go on.
After Midnight Mass, I would definitely go Haunting of Hill House as well. It sort of set the groundwork for what he does now, like what he's known for, and I think it's just, do you prefer haunted house type horror, or do you prefer, I don't even know what you'd call Midnight Mass, like the whole vibe of it, haunted house horror, like this coastal Maine town, the small fishing town, because they are
know
different.
You're trying to describe it, but Midnight Mass.
Some people really like their haunted horror stuff, and it is very, very good.
I love haunted horror, like especially because I love the original, The Haunting.
The Haunting, yes.
Movie from the 60s. Fantastic. Something like that, but just the themes and the scares and what they take. Like, it's not a ghost. It's a creature. What this creature is from popular media, I won't say. But it's just
I feel like he had a really, it's hard to do good haunted horror or haunted horror house because it's been done so much. Like, this was a staple of Gothic Victorian horror, like over 100 years ago. Like, they were doing this, and yet he put a unique spin on it.
Exactly.
On an adaptation of an already fantastic book and movie. Like, that's how good this is. He prioritized again character and family. Like, he really Vin Dieseled that. It's about family,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Flanagan's Fast and Furious.
That would reduce me to tears. So yeah, really love top two, but for me personally, Midnight Mass was better. Just it was like his magnum opus, like it had been building towards this the entire time. Which is interesting, I think, because my two least favorites are the ones that followed my favorite Mike Flanagan projects. So I still love Bly Manor and I still love Midnight Club, but Bly Manor followed Haunting of Hill House, and Midnight Club followed Midnight Mass. So they followed my top two, and yeah, like, where do you go for Midnight Mass, really? Which is where I thought about with Hill House, and then he did Midnight Mass. So
and then I'm so hyped up. He is going to do an adaptation or whatever he's doing of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe and Mike Flanagan in.
Yeah, Fall of the House of Usher, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Like,
and Mark Hamill's gonna be in it. Like, that's got an
oh,
incredible cast as well. Raoul Coley's back.
and I feel like because this is a TV show,
Mm,
Midnight Club, a lot of his usual, like his wife, Raoul, other people are not in the Midnight Club
yeah,
because House of Follow Usher will be more the miniseries. It's like,
yeah.
okay, we need you for that. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely, yeah. This is like he's very. It's like what Netflix are doing with Ryan Murphy. You know, he has his miniseries and he has his series. You know, American Horror Story.
Oh,
Um,
that's just Ryan Murphy in a nutshell. He's like,
yeah,
I like
yeah.
you, or you're a twink. Come on, come on, come on.
Come on, come on another
You're
show.
either a twink, a twunk, or an
Sarah Paulson.
old what?
Sarah Paulson.
Oh, Sarah Paulson, Evan Peter. You're kind of a twink. Used to be. Old Hollywood starlights, and
Yes.
up there, it's like, I really love Kathy Bates. I really love Angela Bassett, and it's like,
Uh,
yeah.
thank God he does. Yeah, you
Oh,
know.
yeah, thank God. Like, say what you want
Yeah.
about Ryan Murphy. You can say a lot, but it's like, hey, we got our God, why am I blanking on her name? The Jessica.
Lange.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, what talent he has in his TV shows. As weird as fuck TV shows, but
And
yeah.
sometimes I'm, oh, that's a stretch, or that's not good. Like when he hits, he hits.
Yeah, definitely. Or we could have a whole other Ryan Murphy
Oh,
podcast. Yeah. But
but
for the bottom two, I don't know whether I think I might prefer Bly Manor. But then like you're right, this hasn't finished yet. It's weird to try and rank them. If we're just going off season 1, I would put Midnight Club at 4 and Bly Manor at number 3 because it tells its story and it wraps it up nicely, and it's another haunted house thing. And actually, it's one of my favorite horror films of all time. The Why am I blanking on her name? Deborah Kerr was in the movie of the black and white, The Innocents they called it. Incredible, and probably the best version of this story out there still, even after Bly Manor. Um, it does do different stuff, obviously, Bly Manor, but whereas with Hunting of Hill House, he adapted it in a way that was new and unique. I don't think it was new and unique enough for Bly Manor.
mhm.
Um, except for I really like that episode. It was just Kate Seagal's old timey character.
Yes.
That was a fantastic episode. I loved it. And I started going, are we really going to have a whole episode of this? I don't want this. And by the end, I was like, Jesus, give me more of them.
But I think that this wraps up our no spoiler talk.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So if you have not watched the Midnight Club, even though it's bottom of your list because something has to be on the bottom, it is
Yeah.
still fantastic. Highly recommend. Just know going into it, it's not a mini series. There's still a lot of questions answered because there will be a season 2. Probably it's top 10.
Yeah.
Like of the so far of the week. So no worries. All right. Spoilers. And then spoilers for Midnight Mass. Vampires.
Vampires. Lots of
Vampires priest.
tunettes.
Oh, the whole church sequence was so good.
Everyone's dead.
Oh, and then just singing at the
Oh,
end.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
at so the
Very
Midnight
good.
Club.
Very good connection with the Midnight Club, though, because one of the best things I think the Midnight Club did was show just how easy it is to become part of a cult if you're desperate enough. If something is happening in your life that you're desperate for, Christianity, a religion, you need something to cling on to. uh, Religion's there and cults are there, and it's from
Sometimes those lines become very blurred.
exactly. And I feel like it was very good just for me personally watching because I didn't know what was going on or anything. I was like, are these the good guys? Are these the bad guys? I was sort of invested with Alonka in whoever Samantha's character was. Julia? sort of culty, good vibes, or not good vibes, Jesus, good humor.
And honestly, like which I'm like, good humor. Isn't that a brand of ice cream
Is
in
it?
America? I'm like, ice cream.
That's so strange.
But honestly, I didn't trust her because I was still thinking of what was her name? Bev from Midnight Mass.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, you're evil. I know you are. Why are you so nice?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel like
But
it wasn't all that hidden that she was Julia, but I've sort of, obviously you're rooting for these kids. You want them to not die at the end of it. So it's like, yeah, I want this
yeah,
to be real. So I was with her, like sort of getting tricked with her, and then she said something very like, "Oh no, we're your family. You can stay here as long as you want." I'm like,
it's like,
mm,
no.
mm,
But we didn't say it was in the no spoiler talk. But I brought up the whole how Ryan Murphy likes the people he works with,
yeah.
and he'll bring in people that you haven't seen in a while, and then boom,
Hmm.
Heather Landing Camp.
Yeah. Yep. And you know what,
Oh
Mark?
my god!
I was so dumb. I was like, where do I know her from?
Be-
Where is this lady? I was like, ah.
Like, and she's been active behind the scenes. Like, her and her husband, special effects, makeup, like that side of the business.
Hmm.
But for her to have not just like a cameo, like she was actually in like in a Ryan Murphy show as just like a cameo, which hey, cool. And who knows if she wanted to do more, but like as a main pivotal role, and
And
she nailed it.
she was, and that's why I was kind of one of the most disappointing things was like, well, who really is she? Because it obviously doesn't tell you. It just
Yeah.
teases it right at the end.
Yeah, at the end, she goes to her room. You see all these old, like super old newspaper clippings. You see, like, I think it's a picture of her son.
Mm.
And she looks herself in the mirror. She takes off the wig. I'm like, I knew that was a wig. I'm like, I don't trust you, but
Mm.
I think that's a wig. And then the last shot, it just pans over to her bald head, and right at the neck, it's the Paragon symbol.
Yeah, that's the whole last shot in the whole thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm.
So if this was a mini series, it would be really frustrating because I'm like, wait, what? But
Yeah,
all right, season 2, we dive more into her. I think,
hopefully. Yeah, God.
but I think what Midnight Club also did with his other works is after a certain episode, I have to stop and really take everything in because I'm emotionally destroyed.
Let me guess. Anya.
Motherfucking Anya.
Yeah. See, as soon as I saw that it was called Anya, I'm like, well, this is the crying episode, isn't it?
Well, I didn't see that like so we'll jump all over the place, just moments that work and
Mm.
didn't work. I think just didn't work. It's just like we kind of talked about this a lot in the general topic. Just we expected more, but we didn't. Yet again, that's just the nature of TV. We just thought it was a miniseries. That's on us.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a mistake on us. What was your like going into this? You said you saw one trailer. Was it the same as me? You just didn't want to like look into anything on it?
I watched one trailer, but I didn't go back and rewatch it.
Right. Yeah.
I'm
Bare
like, all
minimum.
right, like I'm in.
Yeah.
And it wasn't
For
until
me,
like episode 3, I'm like, is this a miniseries? And then I saw, I looked on the wiki, and it wasn't. I'm like, oh, so that kind of like set the mood for me.
mhm.
Of like, all right, you want immediate like information, you gotta wait.
Yeah. And I think as well of what worked and what didn't work, I didn't enjoy the overly young adult themes to it. It's just always the same, you know. You know what's going to happen with the couples and whatever, but I get that it kind of has to be there because it's a young adult TV show, you know.
Is that
But
true? Yes. But did I love the characters? That I don't mind all the tropes? Yes.
I love them separately, I think. When you anytime in TV shows where you just like band characters together, sometimes they lose a little bit of their own personality.
Oh,
And
yeah, and especially when
yeah,
they, like, break them off, it's like, "Oh,
yeah,
so I'm not supposed to like them?" Like,
yeah, yeah.
that's
What else was I gonna say? Oh yes, but on the flip side of that, what I really loved was the whole implementation of, is it Christopher Pike? Is that who you made? Is that what he's called?
yes.
Which is interesting because that's a captain in Star Trek.
Yeah, I thought this I'm like,
Yep,
"Really?"
Captain Pike.
I'm like, "Huh,
Yeah,
that's interesting."
because when you Google it, that's the first thing that comes up. It's like, that's right.
Imagine
Um,
it was Christopher, like, something else, and I just messed it up.
yeah, the SEO on that is all weird. But,
No,
what was I
it
gonna
is,
say?
well, that's his pen name. His real name is Kevin Christopher McFadden?
Oh, okay. I thought it was Kevin
So
Christopher
I
Pike,
guess he
but
was just a
he was a big
big
Star Trek.
Star Trek fan.
Yeah, big Pike fan.
I can't
Um,
wait for my, pen name to be Han Solo.
what was I even talking about, Mark?
The Christopher Pike.
Yes, so I really like the way that this, because again, didn't know until I finished it all, because I wanted to honestly, I wanted to buy the book. I wanted to buy the Midnight Club so I could know how it ends, or how it ends in the book. So I bought that right after watching it and was doing my cursory searches, and it's a series based on the Midnight Club, but the stories they are telling in the Midnight Club is based off other stories that Christopher Pike has wrote in his novels, which I think is really cool. Like, what
It
a
is.
cool, it's like the metaverse, but for the Midnight Club, but done well.
The Midnight Club has legs.
The Midnight Club has legs.
I didn't realize
Um,
that until, I forgot what story, but I'm like, "Oh, are these the books?"
yeah. I think it was a
Because
really cool
I
way of doing it.
because before I watched the show, I'm like, "Oh," because I didn't know how many books. I'm like, "Okay, so is this gonna be like the Midnight Club?" And then the next show is gonna be like the sequel
Mm,
book. And it's like,
mhm.
no, they're Christopher Pike's books are all separate, but this is just a good vehicle to like express like when they tell the story and the whole visual aspect, like the aspect ratio changes, the it feels a lot more cinematic.
Yeah, mhm, and whenever they
And
do, like, black and white, like, when it
oh,
was the
that
sort of
one.
a noir, like a campy noir short story. That's what I like as well. I love anthology stuff, so this was like, "Oh, this is, like, made for me," like horror
So
short stories.
imagine an anthology show that was also a TV show. Like the stories that they come up with are the anthology.
Mhm.
Like they're not the only reason like they're connected is they're a good way to have insight into the character.
That's exactly it, and I think the stories are chosen and adapted very well to, sometimes it's a bit on the nose. You're like, "Oh, this is a metaphor for this." You're like, "Well, this is obviously this and that," but it's not the point of it. You're right. It's to explore the character more. It's like, here's me explaining why I am the way I am, and when it works, it really works. And then sometimes it's just like an incredible. For me, it felt more like Twilight Zone episodes than horror short stories. By the end, it was more like sci-fi and magical realism than horror.
It, exactly, because some of like the stories, like I forget like what the actual story is called, but the two Anyas, the
Yes.
like or two Danas.
Yeah, but it was Anya playing Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was like the two like it's basically like, oh yeah, here's your comeuppance, like, oh, womp womp. That was like, ooh, that's classic Twilight Zone. And then like
Mhm.
the sci-fi twist with Amish his story of like, oh, like they're actually from the future and these lights and maybe they're angels.
Yeah, and it was a good way to be like, because the way they're saying it, this is kids telling these stories. Are like, yeah, sure. At the end, he just throws in, actually,
Yeah.
you know what? They're angels.
And what I liked about when I mentioned the jump scare, like, so episode 1 has the most jump scares, like it's a Guinness Book record, and you might think of like, oh my god, this is gonna be really scary. No, maybe you're scared. I wasn't, but the vehicle of like like the cheap jump scares, and they're commenting like, that that's not scary. You're just startling them. Like you're just going boom. And I felt that's kind of like Flanagan's views on jump scares. He
Oh,
uses
yeah.
them. He arguably has one of the best jump scares, like a
He
top
uses
10 one.
he uses them sparingly though, and it
But when he
is
does,
yes.
they're scary.
And he builds up to it as well, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What was your favorite story that the kids told?
I was gonna ask you this as well. Because when I realized they weren't one of my issues with it is that they weren't really horror stories by the end. Like, I guess if you were like, no, this is horror, it should be horror story. Like it does veer off into sci-fi more. But saying that, my favorite stories were probably the sci-fi ones. Like the one with Raul Coley in it, where it was here's this video game, you've got to work out this missile problem, and it was that weird angel hopping thing. It felt more like a campy episode of Black Mirror than
Yes.
yeah. I really like that one, and honestly, I really like anything with Enya in it. I think she was the best actor and the best character in this, which is why her death hit so hard, and perhaps why the ending didn't land for me as well, because you know she's just not there anymore. But yeah, her to Dana's story, because I feel like that is horror. That is a classic, like you said, Twilight Zone episode right there. Like making a deal with the devil so you can be two people at once. I'm sure there's been multiple Twilight Zone episodes of that.
Like I've seen this before because I'm like, okay, I know how this turns out.
Yeah,
But I was
yeah.
so invested, and just seeing like when I watched the Anya episode, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
like now I'm thinking back to this Tale of Two Datas, and this is what happened. And then I'm like, oh, everything's like coming into place.
Yeah, that was also another favorite. Like technically it wasn't a story, but it was like as she was dying, she got that experience of having her own little world for a while, with multiple stories interconnecting to make her realize that she was going
Well,
to die soon.
we'll touch on the Anya episode
Yeah, just that the two Danas and
because I
the
thought that was
row,
the best episode.
it certainly made me cry. Um,
You know what? Let's just talk about it right now
no, no,
because
no, I wanna know your favorite stories, like, first. Was there any other ones, or were they the same of your favorites?
the two Danas, because the first one wasn't like the first episode had a story, but I felt like this is like
Yes,
it wasn't
exactly.
like the I feel like other shows would be like, this is a story, but then it's like 5 minutes and then and then we, go 20 minutes later and the meeting goes back and it's like, hey, what was the rest of the story?
Mhm.
Like it took 30 minutes or 20 to 30 minutes to tell a whole story. Do they do it in parts like with Kevin? Yeah, but they're also 20-minute segments.
Yeah.
So we're getting lost in the world. We will hear commentary from like, wait, like the other kids being like, wait, what? And it's like, just hear me out. I really love the visual style of Sandra's, the whole noir.
Yeah. Yes, the style of that one was very cool, and I love the over the topness of it.
That
And actually with that one, I really loved her because, you know, she's, like, religious and Christian, so instead of smoking, it was a toothpick.
it was that, and then all of a sudden at the end, and they're angels.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
But it was very like heartwarming because I'm like, oh, these are connected to the characters because she's trying to tell Spencer, like, hey, who has AIDS, and they had a big fight early in the episode. Like, I accept you. I'm sorry that everyone else is so shitty.
Yep.
That's not what God means to me. And she gives and Spencer gives like a kiss to Sandra, what I think it's extra heartwarming because I didn't until the Anya episode. I'm like, when does this take place in the 90s?
Yeah, they didn't
Like,
go
you
to
gotta,
the that. Yeah.
and then it's like Time into Life plays. I'm like, okay, that's like 97, 98. But I think that was extra poignant that like Sandra accepted that kiss because AIDS paranoia was so high that they
Yeah.
thought like just touching another person, just like a poke, boom, or a hug or a kiss, you get AIDS, which is not the case.
Yeah, which is also told very well when Anya got blood on her from what was his name? Oh, I forget his name.
Spencer?
Spencer. Yes, when Anya got blood as well, and she was like, "Look, don't worry about it,"
When
and
they're
he was
doing
freaking
the
out.
patrol. Yeah,
Yeah. I felt like it was within its own narrative and within the stories they told their character stories very well, which is why I really like the story system. Yes, it's on the nose a lot of the time, but it's better than just going, "I forgive you." Oh, okay, things that you saw before in TV.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I think that the Mish story was very good. Um, the what's her name? The starts with an N.
Oh, she's not called Nash. Hold on, I'll get it up so we're right. Where is
I
it?
just can't pronounce.
All my tabs. Oh, is it Natsuki? Natsuki?
Natsuki.
Yeah.
God, I hope we were pronouncing it right.
Me too.
But her story of like the hitchhiker and of how that relates to her trying to commit suicide in just a dark, somehow real life Twilight Zone twist of like, you live, but you will die.
Mm. Yeah.
Which I don't know if I ever said this before. Anytime they show like a message on screen at the end, like our rest in peace this actor, or if you or anyone else need help, it can be like, hey, and I'll be like, he said, hey, the screen said, like, anytime they cut to black and it's a message, it can be like, damn girl, you're looking fine. I'm like, it was, he's damn, you looking fine. I'll always tear up, I'll break down.
We find your trigger for
Oh,
crying fading to black in a message.
oh yeah, like rest in peace, or if you or anyone need help, or it can just be something stupid like I don't know, farts, and I'll be like, farts.
Oh god. That's a very unique trigger there. Makes sense for the first two there.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but no one has done that yet. The last thing yet.
We'll wait to see the next series of Rick and Morty.
They would, and I would cry.
But yeah, I feel like we can go on to if you want to talk about the Anya episode now. Apart from just breaking down and crying, which was, to be fair, was a surprise to me because, like, what's coming. It's coming. They've been talking about it since the beginning episode. And you're like, it feels like they're prompting you, like, this is the sad episode, but it still made me tear up. And I was
No, I was a
so,
dummy, Jessica. I didn't realize until the end
it was so.
because
That's why I was like behind Alanka a lot of the time when she was doing all this stupid stuff because I feel like she suffers from main character syndrome where she has to do the dumb thing to progress the story, you
and at
know.
first I wasn't I shouldn't say not a fan of Anya, but it's like she was
Mm,
initially very cold, but
mhm.
then like how she warms up, and I loved her monologue about when I think it's the third episode, second or third episode, or maybe even fourth. Spencer gets a cut, and no big deal, it's just a small cut, but he freaks out, and it's revealed that he has AIDS, and Anya has this angry reaction to her because she gives like a pity, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not the same reaction that we have because we have cancer. he has AIDS. It's either super pity, like you're done, or you're shunned.
Hmm.
And just that, I'm like, okay, I love you, Anya.
Yeah, and
Like, I get you now.
she's like, every good Mike Flanagan series has a good speech giver. She's the speech giver. She's very good at it. She's also great at the comedy because I loved when was it Alanka was throwing up and she was offering her tablets and she was talking about it being don't be a downer. Oh no, wait. It is a downer, morphine. That timing on that was perfect.
She was definitely the breakout star out of this. And I feel like everyone in the cast did a great job. I was invested, but man.
Agreed. Yeah. Breakout star is a good way to put it. I feel like people watching this would be like, I want to hire her.
Yes. I would
Mhm.
hire all of them, but it's like if we had to rank them, it's number one. And they got me with the Anya episode at first, because all of a sudden it's opens on black and you just heard beep, 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 and it opens up on a grocery store. You're just scanning items. I'm like,
Mm.
and at first I'm like, is this a flashback episode?
Yeah, I
And then
thought so too.
I'm like, wait, it worked? Wait, she's alive? Wait a second. Why is there conveniently a ballerina studio or ballet studio and a like a video game shop? Wait a second. Who's she living with? I'm like, oh, I don't think she's really all right. And
It's
just
like, oh
like,
no. Yeah.
and leading up to the episode, she's like tearfully like begging, like, I want to live, I don't want to die, even though she's so cold-hearted in the beginning. And you feel that so hard, like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, are you alive? What's going on? And then I'm like, wait, did the ritual work? What was the ritual? Was
Yeah.
questions I had in the mind. But I'm like, wait a second. And then just like everyone joining outside the hospital room to tell the story, and like, and then she dies, and I'm a wreck, and I'm expecting to fade to black, and Mike Flanagan's like, no, bitch, you gonna cry. Because they all like mourn for her at the midnight club. And this is what I liked about Heather Langenkamp's character. It wasn't like she was the villain.
Mhm.
Definitely mysterious, but even when she shuts down the club, she's like, I love this club. We all know this club exists, but it's like you took it a step too far. It sucks. I don't want to do this. And they're like, let's pour out her ashes. And what song do they play? Time of Your Life by Green Day via cello?
Yeah.
I
Dramatic as
hate
fuck.
life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, and then like they end with like a scare. I'm like,
You're like, "Ah, God." The
I had
bit
to
I
stop, and I'm like, whew.
yeah. That's definitely a stop here for a wee bit episode because I feel like wasn't there like 3 episodes after that?
Yes.
Yeah. The bit that well, I mean, it all got me. The bit where they were all outside the room doing it. Her, like you said before, screaming that she wanted to live. But when Olanka went in and talked to the janitor as he was making the bed, I was like, oh my God, this is so fucking sad. Because it like
Oh, they
harkened
do
back
the
to
cut to of like the neat, like Anya's in the bed, and it cuts to morning. Yeah, whatever. It cuts
yeah,
to
yeah.
the next day or
Mhm.
whenever, and it's the very neat sheets, all
Which you
that.
saw in like the second or third episode. When was it? Triss, she was called, died.
Yes.
So yeah, that was very good at interconnecting it. That's another thing. Mike Flanagan is very good at the tearjerker stuff. He has a lot of heart in his horror, and this one I believe has some of the most of it because there's less horror. There's more heart, if you get what I mean.
Also, this is very random about Midnight Mass, but I'm just thinking about my parents. I watched the final episode with them, and I'm like, yeah, and they're all zombies and they're dead. Like all vampires and they're dead. And they're like, no, they're zombies. I'm like
Oh,
explaining
they
to
thought
them, I'm
it
like,
was
no,
zombies? Okay.
no, they're vampires. And they're like, oh,
Like, that makes sense.
that
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense. I don't know why that just popped up in my mind, but just, oh, maybe it's a good thing this wasn't a mini series because everyone would just be dead.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because when I realized it was a series, I'm like, "So I'm gonna have to watch all of them die?" That's not gonna go well.
Oh,
But then
that's
I'm curious to see whether that's the one part I did not like well, it's not a conclusion, but the ending where they ended it, where, Julia, just was, like, laughing as she goes up the elevator, and that's it. That's, like, her last bit, and it was the ritual before that. I felt like that was a little rushed, and I just didn't like where they ended that. It's just like, "Come on, you were building up and up and up even for season 1, and then to just end it there."
I mean, I like the Dr. Stanton stuff of like, okay, like who is she? Like, I'm like, okay, season 2, let's go. Even though I was already like that.
Mhm.
But I'm like, do we think that she killed like she's actually from like way back when? And she's just like not killing the people, like technically they're dead.
Yeah, it's actually a good time to talk about theories because that's what I thought they were gonna before I realized it was a season 1, they were gonna reveal that that's why she keeps the kids here, so she can feed off their dead energy, like that creature that, Natsuki was talking
Hmm.
about who would feed on their possible like, the time they didn't have, basically, because they're dead. I feel like they're either red herring that or that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, does that make Stanton a good person? Like, is she the bad guy?
Yeah, I guess they're gonna go into, like, a gray area, like, well, they're gonna die anyway, so but then she's immortal? But is she? Is this what they're doing? And who's the old guy and well, we know who the old guy and the old girl is from the picture at the end,
Hmm.
but how does that connect to Nick and Alonka? This is another thing, like, do you remember when Alon that's right, they might be possessing, like, in Bly Manor, actually, now I think of it, because at the beginning, she goes over to Nick and was like, "Do I know you from somewhere?" They felt like they knew each other.
Oh,
Forgot about that until now. And then they're the two who are seeing the opposite ghost from the other person.
damn.
So, yeah, I wanna read the that's why I got the book. I was like, "I wanna know how it ends in the book." See where they
Even
could
though it'll
possibly
probably be
go.
different from,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I just wanna see.
but again, Mike Flanagan just does not miss.
Nope, does not. And also, I binged this in 2 and a bit days. I don't know about you.
Same.
Yeah. His stuff just calls for it, doesn't it?
And it's one of those things, it's not like, all right, 2 episodes a night. It's like, I need this.
Yeah, I think I finished the last 6 all back to back.
I stayed up until like midnight.
Oh, it's
I
a good place to end
know.
it on, yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, nah, I should have just waited until the next day to watch it. Oh well.
Yeah, when you're a wreck the next day. Yeah.
It's like, Mark, what's wrong with you? I'm like, Anya. It's like, who's Anya? A fictional character from a TV show. Leave me alone.
Uh, I think that's it from me from Midnight Club. Have we, like, missed anything big?
I do want to touch upon Mark, not me. The character Mark.
The not orderly, but
Yeah.
yeah.
The nurse, but kind of.
Yes.
And just like him and his relationship he has with the kids, especially Spencer, it just feels very heartwarming.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Because I was glad for a moment. I thought they were going to try and put him together with Spencer, and I'm like, no, that's weird, Pretty Little Liars stuff. But they didn't do that.
Oh, thank God they didn't. That would have been, even though, like, do I trust Mike Flanagan? Yes. But I think it's more of like, I don't want to say the old guard and the new guard, because I'm pretty sure, like, Mark is also gay.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, just like them relating to each other, because hell, being gay today a lot better than the 90s, but still society is still not accepting, unfortunately. So imagine that in the late 90s, it kind of feels like, hey, like, we got each other.
Yeah, I'm really glad they went down that route with it. Because like I said, I was scared.
I didn't even think about the relationship aspects.
Maybe because have you seen Pretty Little Liars?
No.
Maybe because that ABC Family show did it. I was like, no, please don't. But you're right. I should have had faith in old Mike Flanagan, and instead he did. Oh, and also I meant to. It's Mike Flanagan co-created with oh god, I'm going to forget her name.
Leah Fong.
Yes, Leah Fong, who had worked on Blind Manor before and Once Upon a Time and The Magicians. She wrote quite a lot of episodes. She wrote Enya, or co-wrote it as well. So shout out to her as well as Mike Flanagan working on this. And all the directors, because it didn't really feel like anytime it wasn't Mike Flanagan, it was like a poorer episode, a poorer directed episode, you know?
I just wish Leah Fong had a wiki page. That's it. I just, she deserves it.
Yeah. Good job to everyone involved in this. I also love the design of, just closing thoughts, I guess. I love the design of the halls of this hospice. You know, the rounded corridors.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. I thought it was beautiful.
So good. What did she do? She did that. Amazing Stories, an episode.
Yes,
So, you know, I hope in the future with this whole Mike Flanagan, like, he wants to do his own thing. I do hope his name is attached, because I don't know how much involvement, like, was it 50-50? Was it a little more? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say he adapts something else and he's not as evolved. I hope. I don't know. I hope for the best.
I get what you mean. Like he can do his miniseries, and he set this up so that other people can sort of keep it going as the series, and like he can pop in obviously and direct and writes and stuff.
Yeah, and has the name attached, the Mike Flanagan name, because you know, I mean, anything with Mike Flanagan, we've well established I'm in,
Yeah.
but as long as the other person gets credit for it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's like what here's a great example. Did you know the recent Candyman movie?
Yes, and I know where you're going with this. Yeah. Nia DaCosta directed movie.
Or as all the publications put, Jordan Peele's Candyman.
Yeah, that pissed me off too.
That was like, no.
Especially because the direction she did was the best thing about that film, in my opinion. Like, come on. Credit people.
Even he was like a co-director. He was just a producer, which is important, but
yeah, like she directed the film. It's her film, yeah.
So love you, Leah. And that's it for me. Even if you've already seen it, very good. Very I don't know why I accidentally just clicked on a tab, the Twitter, and the first thing that pops up. Do you know the Sleepy Time tea? The bear?
No. We have normal tea over here, Mark.
But whoa. How dare you?
We have
make fun of my Sleepy Time tea.
Brown tea.
And you're bragging about that?
Yeah. We have gross tea over here.
Okay, I just sent
great.
you the tweet via Slack.
Okay. Why are you telling me this? Is this because of Bear and Breakfast?
No,
What?
it just popped up.
I just read the second line. Sleepy Time Tea Bear shot dead in Houston.
Yeah, Sleepy Time Bear shot dead in Houston. And I was just, that's the first thing that pops up. And I'm like, what?
Okay, you jump scared me there. What the
Play Bear and Breakfast.
Hopefully it doesn't take place in Houston, does it?
Exactly. But yeah, that's it from Midnight Club to me. Definitely great time watching it. Great show. Can't wait for a second season. Now that I know this is not a mini series, that's again, that's on us. That's not like, how dare Mike Flanagan?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike Flanagan, for not doing my due research.
And Leah, my bad. I should have.
Yeah. Sorry, Captain Christopher Pike.
Weren't you a bad guy in Star Trek? I don't know Star Trek.
No, he was a good guy. Well, he was the Starfleet commander anyway. Not to be nerd on this, but
not to be nerd, but in the original series,
like,
he had an
technically.
Well, technically, they had the age. I'm like, okay, Jess. Whatevs. But that's it from us. Jessica, anything you want to plug?
You can follow me at Resi Jessie for random tweets. Sometimes I tweet 4 times a day. Sometimes I don't tweet for 3 weeks.
Same.
Yeah. Come and see how long it's been since I've tweeted then. Other than that, I am planning on doing a Doctor Who Centenary special review. I believe it's called Power of the Doctor. It took them so long to reveal the title, I just call it the Centenary special. But looking forward to it. We'll be reviewing it probably the day or the day after it comes out.
Hell yeah. You can find me on Twitter at LowMarco512. I have Marvel's Werewolf by Night review already up on KeenGamer, Hocus Pocus 2 review. Good watches, good reviews. Please check that out. Speaking of KeenGamer, you can check us out on KeenGamer.com. We got the latest reviews, opinions, guides, all the fixins. And also, search us up on Spotify or Apple. Give us a 5-star. It gives us a little bump in the charts so more lovely people like yourself can listen. I'm your host, Marco Callahan, and we hope you have a nice day.